My name is Ethan Vance. For 2 decades, I built my career on trust. My reputation was my currency, my word, my bond. I led major deals, closed impossible contracts, and always kept my integrity. My best friend Alex was by my side through most of it. We were brothers, or so I believed. The first signs were whispers, barely audible. A crucial deal when I had locked down suddenly fell through, then another. My long-standing connections. People I'd worked with for years became strangely evasive. Phone calls went unreturned. Emails vanished into the digital void. Then came the first real blow. The Phoenix Project, my magnum opus, stalled. For weeks, progress reports were vague, meetings postponed. I sensed a deliberate obstruction, a subtle hand pulling strings in the shadows. It felt like walking through quicksand. The project was abruptly canceled. No clear reason. Just corporate speak about restructuring priorities. My gut churned. This wasn't bad luck. This felt like a targeted attack. An invisible, malevolent force was systematically dismantling everything I had built piece by piece. I cornered Robert, a key industry partner, in the lobby. He avoided my eyes. "Ethan, I'm sorry," he mumbled. "We have to sever ties. Vague ethical concerns, you understand. Ethical concerns." My reputation was spotless. The words felt rehearsed. A lie carefully crafted. Paranoia began to set in. My professional network, once vast and reliable, was shrinking. Doors slammed shut before I could even knock. Every phone call, every email, every meeting felt like a test, and I was failing without knowing the rules of the game. The financial impact hit hard. Major contracts, once guaranteed, dried up. Investment opportunities I had been tracking for months simply vanished. My bank account, once robust, began to reflect the sudden, inexplicable shift in my professional fortunes. I reached out to trusted mentors, colleagues I had championed. Their silence was deafening. A few answered, but their voices were strained, their excuses cryptic. "Things are complicated, Ethan. It's not a good time." The evasiveness was a new kind of pain. The soul-crushing realization dawned on me. My world wasn't just crumbling, it was being systematically demolished. Every connection, every opportunity, every path forward was being intentionally blocked. I was a pariah, and I had no idea why or by whom. Then the final blow. A process server handed me a thick envelope, a lawsuit, baseless, malicious, filled with fabricated accusations. It was the last piece of the puzzle, confirming the full extent of the attack. My downfall had just begun. The financial strain was immediate and severe. I sold my apartment, then my car. The grand life I had built was shrinking day by day. Every liquidation felt like another piece of me being chipped away, but I kept my focus. This was not surrender, it was strategic retreat. The reasons for my professional collapse never quite fit. Vague ethical concerns, restructuring priorities, market shifts. Each explanation from different sources had a hollow ring to it. They were too generic, too perfectly aligned. My gut told me these were not organic failures. Desperation fueled my resolve. I started my own investigation. Late nights were spent sifting through old emails, news articles, public records. I tracked every meeting, every canceled deal, looking for patterns. It was a painstaking, solitary climb up a very dark mountain. The first whispers emerged from the digital shadows. A forum post, quickly deleted, mentioned integrity issues with a project I led years ago. A former junior colleague, now retired, hinted at someone spreading rumors. It was a subtle, insidious smear campaign, barely visible. The attacks were too precise to be random. They targeted my integrity, my trust, the very pillars of my career. My reputation for transparency was twisted into accusations of hiding facts. My belief in genuine relationships was painted as naivete. Someone knew me too well. Then I started noticing Alex. His face was everywhere: new deals, major acquisitions, glowing profiles in industry magazines. His ascent was meteoric, suspiciously timed with my own downfall. He was building his empire on the ashes of my career. I remembered our early days. Late nights building our first models, celebrating small wins with cheap beer. He was my brother, my confidant. We shared dreams, swore loyalty. The memories felt like a cruel joke now, a stark contrast to the betrayal I suspected. My mind battled itself. It couldn't be Alex. We were family. I tried to rationalize it, to find any other explanation. Maybe he was just capitalizing on my misfortune. Maybe he was unaware, but the growing mountain of circumstantial evidence crushed my attempts at denial. The psychological toll was immense. Sleep became a luxury I couldn't afford. My thoughts spun. A relentless carousel of doubt, anger, and anxiety. Every shadow seemed to hold a new threat. I was fighting an unseen enemy and the battle was exhausting my soul. Then I found it. An old project review document, seemingly harmless. It detailed a minor oversight from years ago, now subtly reworded to frame me for negligence. But in the bottom corner, almost invisible, was a chilling watermark, a unique, stylized AX logo Alex used for his personal projects. My blood ran cold. I called Alex. He answered quickly, his voice full of feigned concern. We met at a quiet cafe. He acted shocked about my situation, offering unwavering support. His performance was flawless, almost convincing. He offered advice. He suggested I focus on personal matters or take a break. He pointed me towards dead ends, subtly diverting my attention from the true source. Each word was a poisoned gift designed to mislead. My mind wrestled. This was Alex, my brother. How could he do this? Yet the evidence from the AX watermark gnawed at me. The man across the table smiled, but I saw a serpent's eyes behind his warmth. It was a brutal internal war. I ignored his false advice. I kept digging. I cross-referenced the AX logo with every suspicious document, every canceled meeting. The pattern became undeniable. Emails, forged reports, manipulated data, all tied back to him. The proof was irrefutable. Deeper dives revealed his long game. Old project files showed his subtle attempts to undermine me years ago, dismissed then as friendly competition. His ambition wasn't new, it was a simmering volcano finally erupting. This wasn't spontaneous, it was meticulously planned. The truth hit me like a physical blow. The brother I knew, the bond I cherished, was a lie. He had planned this for years. I felt a profound grief, a tearing of my very soul. The world spun. I was alone, truly alone, with a shattered past. The despair did not last. A cold, hard fury began to set in. It was a quiet rage burning deep within me. My grief turned to resolve. He wanted war, he had it. My vengeance would be precise, calculated, and devastating. I replayed every interaction, every accidental meeting. His campaign was sophisticated. He exploited my trust, my belief in genuine connections. He knew my vulnerabilities better than anyone. It was a masterclass in psychological warfare. I started mapping his network, key individuals he swayed, the leverage points he used against me, old colleagues, industry rivals, even some of my former clients. He used their weaknesses, their ambitions, to turn them against me. His web was intricate. I stood in my empty apartment, surrounded by the ruins of my life. My career, my finances, my brotherhood, all gone, but a new purpose ignited. I would not just clear my name. I would systematically dismantle Alex's empire piece by agonizing piece. This was my vow. My last remaining asset, a small investment property, was finally sold. The funds vanished quickly, swallowed by legal battles and living expenses. I moved into a tiny, forgotten apartment on the city's edge. This was rock bottom. Financially, but it was also a clean slate, a necessary reset. I embraced a minimalist life. Most connections were severed, the ones tied to my old life. I kept only what was essential, shedding the weight of past luxuries. This forced simplicity sharpened my focus. My resolve, however, was anything but minimal. It burned brighter than ever. My days became a meticulous study. I analyzed Alex's every move, every public statement, every deal he closed. I looked for patterns in his corporate structures, his key personnel. I searched for weaknesses, for ethical corners he might have cut, for any crack in his carefully built facade. I began to rebuild, but differently. I reached out to a select few from my past, not the fair-weather friends, but those I knew valued integrity above all else. A former analyst, a retired compliance officer, a journalist who once championed truth. My network would be small, discreet, and fiercely loyal. My mind became my most powerful weapon. I started a rigorous routine, meditation to channel my rage, physical training to sharpen my body. Every ounce of anger was converted into discipline, into focus. I needed clarity, not chaos, to navigate the path ahead. The long-term plan began to take shape. It was complex, multi-layered, and designed for a slow, agonizing unraveling. This wasn't about a quick win. This was about dismantling an empire. Piece by agonizing piece, I would operate entirely in the shadows, unseen. I understood one crucial thing: the system that blacklisted me was corrupted. I could not fight within its rules. My comeback, my revenge, would have to be unconventional. It would require methods outside the established norms, leveraging hidden pathways and unspoken truths. Small strategic whispers began. A minor piece of information, subtly leaked, caused a ripple in Alex's latest venture. A slight shift in market perception, barely noticeable, but I saw it. These tiny victories fueled my confidence, confirming my methods were working. Moments of despair still hit. The weight of what I had lost was immense, but I pushed through, visualizing Alex's eventual downfall. I pictured his arrogance turning to fear, his empire crumbling. My vindication would be complete, public, and undeniable. I executed a small, almost undetectable test operation. It was a ghost in the machine, a tiny ripple in Alex's recent acquisition. He wouldn't even notice. I watched his company's stock, a barely perceptible dip, then a quick recovery. His dismissive arrogance was clear. My silent return had begun. I activated the old channels, the ones I kept hidden even from Alex. My contact, a former data analyst named Marcus, met me in a quiet park. He didn't ask questions. He just listened to my request for Alex's current project details. Marcus delivered. The data was raw but clear. Alex had been cutting corners, using shell corporations and manipulating quarterly reports. There were hidden offshore accounts too. His empire was built on a shaky foundation of lies. I spent days dissecting the information. Each vulnerability was a target. I mapped out a multi-pronged assault: legal, financial, and reputational. This wouldn't be a single blow. It would be a slow, precise demolition. My first move was subtle. I fed anonymous tips to industry watchdogs about Alex's new acquisition, not enough to stop it, but enough to trigger an audit. He wouldn't know where it came from, he'd just feel the pressure. Then came the reputational hit. I carefully crafted a narrative based on truth about a minor ethical lapse from his past. I leaked it to a niche financial blog, knowing it would spread through the right channels, a tiny crack in his perfect facade. At the same time, I began to re-engage with select industry leaders, not openly but through discreet introductions. I shared insights, offered genuine advice. Slowly, quietly, my name started to resurface in positive contexts in the circles that mattered most. My public narrative was simple: a forced sabbatical, a return with renewed vision. It was a clean slate story. No mention of Alex, no hint of revenge. This was a separate track, a shield to allow my true work to continue unseen. The pressure on Alex was building. His stock showed minor volatility. Rumors, once dismissed, were gaining traction. I could almost feel his frustration, the subtle shift in his confident demeanor. The trap was tightening. Then a close call. One of my anonymous leaks was almost traced back to my old, forgotten burner phone. It was a rookie mistake. I shut it down immediately. The near miss was a cold splash of water, a brutal reminder of the stakes, no room for error. I refined the final phase. Alex's upcoming public offering was the perfect stage. I had enough evidence, meticulously gathered, to expose his deep corruption. The trap was set. There was no turning back now. The world would soon see the truth. The public offering went live. That was my cue. I initiated the first phase of the data release, a small, almost imperceptible tremor in Alex's carefully constructed empire. It started as a few lines of code, a ghost in the machine designed to trigger specific audits. Alex, always confident, initially brushed off the first anomaly, a minor delay in a key regulatory approval. He saw it as a bureaucratic hiccup, not a calculated strike. But I knew the pressure was building, a subtle tightening of the noose. Then the whispers began, not direct accusations, but subtle questions in financial forums. Anonymous posts hinting at unusual accounting practices in his recent ventures. The media picked up on the vague rumors, a faint hum of doubt in the industry air. Alex launched his damage control, press releases, public statements blaming market volatility. He tried to spin the narrative, but every countermove he made was anticipated. I had already neutralized those avenues, closing off his escape routes one by one. The media's questions grew sharper. Industry leaders, once eager to praise Alex, now held back. His sudden, seemingly unearned dominance was no longer celebrated, it was scrutinized. The spotlight shifted, casting long, uncomfortable shadows on his rise. I sent him an anonymous package. Inside, a single, faded photograph of us from years ago standing proudly beside our first shared project. No note, no message. Just that image. It was my subtle way of telling him, I am here, I am watching, this is me. His composure began to crack. Public appearances showed a man under immense strain. His confident smiles turned into strained grimaces. He snapped at reporters, dismissed valid concerns with anger. His panic was becoming visibly apparent to everyone around him. Then came the full, undeniable exposure. My meticulously gathered evidence, the fabricated reports, the offshore accounts. The systematic smear campaign against me went viral. Every detail, every lie laid bare for the world to see. There was no denying it now. Alex's world collapsed rapidly. His board called an emergency meeting. Partners pulled out. Investors demanded answers. The widespread outrage was immediate, a public storm of condemnation. Everything he had built on the ruins of my career crumbled in a single day. Alex was publicly disgraced, facing immediate legal action and industry blacklisting. My victory was complete, undeniable, but as I watched the news reports, a hollow feeling settled in. This wasn't joy, it was the chilling understanding of the profound cost of our shattered brotherhood. The game was over, but the wounds remained. Alex's empire crumbled. The news was full of his downfall, lawsuits piled up. His professional world evaporated. The industry, once quick to condemn me, now turned its full force on him. He was blacklisted, ostracized, facing ruin. I watched calm, knowing this was the inevitable consequence of his choices. My own path was clear. I began accepting leadership roles again, not the ones I had before, but new opportunities built on the trust I had painstakingly rebuilt. I was stronger, wiser, and more discerning. My reputation was not just restored, it was fortified by fire. I often reflected on the profound cost of betrayal. The destruction Alex wrought was immense, not just on me, but on the trust within the entire industry. Unchecked ambition, I realized, was a corrosive force. True power was not dominance, but integrity and resilience. Rebuilding trust was a meticulous process. I engaged with industry peers, sharing my insights, championing ethical practices, but I held a new, guarded perspective. Human nature, I now knew, held both immense good and profound darkness. I would never be naive again. I saw Alex across the crowded lobby of an old building. He looked broken, a shadow of his former self. Our eyes met across the distance. No words were needed, there was no anger left, only a mournful finality. The bond was severed beyond repair. The void left by our lost friendship was irreparable. It was a scar, a permanent reminder of a brotherhood that had never truly existed. Yet, I felt no regret for my actions. Justice had been served. My survival demanded it. I began to champion new standards, transparency, ethical conduct, genuine collaboration. I spoke at conferences, advised industry bodies. My experience became a cautionary tale, a blueprint for protecting others from similar malice. My voice carried weight. The industry paradigm began to shift. Ruthless ambition was no longer celebrated. Genuine trust and ethical conduct gained prominence. It was a slow change but visible. My ordeal had, in a strange way, contributed to a healthier ecosystem. I emerged not just vindicated, but fundamentally transformed. The fight had forged me into something new, a beacon of resilience. The man who lost everything had gained an unbreakable spirit. It was a triumph, hard-won and deeply personal. I stood atop the industry once more. My revenge was devastating, my life rebuilt. Justice was served. But the scars of profound betrayal were a permanent part of my identity. They were a reminder of the darkness and the strength it took to rise above it. My journey was complete.